You're listening to the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to this spoiler special episode for The Walking Dead. My name is Sean, I am your host, and I am also the senior editor at postapocalyptic.com. We do this little show here to be a spoiler-filled podcast that's kind of separate from our normal podcast. We have a separate podcast called the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast. Say that 5 times fast. And it's for the website postapocalyptic.com. If you're new here, if this is your first time watching, go back and watch a few of my other spoiler specials. This is number 3, and this one will be for season 11, episode 6 of The Walking Dead. Now, this is available on AMC Plus. It was available on Sunday on AMC Plus, so it's not out yet for regular AMC viewers. So keep that in mind, because this is full of spoilers. I'm going to talk about my favorite parts of it. I'm going to talk about everything. So if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to hold off. That said, tell your friends, tell everyone, just gather around here and we're going to talk about this, because I am crazy about this episode. This is by far, this is not only my favorite episode of this season, I would say it's my favorite episode of the last few seasons. I said it. I know. It's so well done. It's written so well. It's directed so well. It has this 80s vibe to it, this 80s horror movie vibe, like Friday the 13th and Halloween and all those kind of shows that I grew up with. And they really did it well. And you can tell, of course, they're appealing to people like me, people of a certain age who maybe enjoy, 80s horror movies. So, that said, let's go through the episode. Let's talk about kind of what happened, right? So, it starts off with Connie. Connie and Virgil are running through the woods. Now, we heard in the last episode that there was a whisperer that Aaron and Carol and them captured, and they were torturing him. They were going to let him die, and they decided not to. Well, he revealed to them that he knew the whereabouts of one of their people. He said there was this girl that was caught in a cave and she escaped and she's alive. And they were like, oh, it's Connie. Because we all thought Connie was dead. We saw the collapse, right? So he reveals that Connie's still alive. And she met up with Virgil. Now, Virgil's the guy who, he met up with Michonne very early. Let's see. I think it was probably season 10, maybe even 9. And so they knew each other, so he knew Michonne, and she was telling him kind of about, her group and things like that. So anyway, so Connie and Virgil met up, and where this episode starts, they're running through the woods looking for a safe spot, and something's chasing them, right? That's how we left off with them last time. And so they see an old mansion. I say mansion because this is just an enormous house, and it's a very haunted house. You can tell that the writers were trying to make like a haunted house vibe to this thing, and it worked. So they find this old mansion in the middle of nowhere. They run in there. There's of course walkers all around, so they're getting away from the walkers, and they head in to this house, and they barricade the door, and so they're safe, right? Well, so Virgil goes around and he's like, I'm going to check out the place. I'm going to look around. So he kind of, looks in a few doors. Oh, looks safe to me. And Connie's like, no. I feel like there's someone here. I feel like there's a little bit more to this. So I'm going to go check again. So she goes and checks. And when she's in the bathroom, she sees an eyeball pop through a little hole in the wall. And she's like, what? I mean, can you imagine? And the eyeball is like yellow. Like the white part of the eye is actually yellow. It's super gross. But we saw that. We saw that in the trailer the week before. So we knew that was coming. So that wasn't the big surprise. The big surprise, of course, comes later when we get to see those people, right? Those ferals, they call them. So anyway, so she runs downstairs, tells Virgil we're not alone, and he doesn't understand her. She's deaf, so she can't, he doesn't know sign language, so she can only sign, and she's trying to sign to him and he doesn't understand what's going on. So she literally scratches the words "not alone" in a giant painting that's on the wall. So then he gets the hint, right? So they're making their way through the haunted house, and they get separated. This door closes between them, which is an obvious trap, an obvious thing that someone led them. I think someone led them to the house because they were being chased. And then, of course, someone led them to that part where they could get separated. So an interesting thing happens when they get separated. Connie, who can't hear, we get to kind of feel and hear from her perspective. So all the sound goes out. When they're separated, there's no one around her and there's no sound. So she's going around and trying to figure out what's going around, feeling around and looking in the dark. And she can't hear what's happening to Virgil on the other side of that door. She doesn't know, if he's dead or what happened. And so I like that part of it. I like that every time she's alone in the house, they cut out the sound and they just make it so that you hear what she hears. You feel that, frightening. There's no way to describe it. It's really scary to think about being in something like that, surrounded by who knows what on the other side of the wall, and you can't hear. So it was a good like writer directorial decision to introduce that part of it, to this episode. Anyway, so later on, she is in the wall. She finds these people. These they call them the ferals, and the crazy thing is they go on all fours. It's like The Ring. Y'all remember The Ring, right? When the girl's on the floor and her elbows are like in like this, and she's crawling around, and it's super creepy. The long hair over the face. They kind of captured that. So there's these half naked, probably like 3/4 naked people crawling around on the floor after her, and when you first see it, you're like, oh, okay, that's where this episode's going. Okay, it's gonna scare the crap out of me. Okay, so they're chasing her around, and she finds a room with bones everywhere, remnants of who knows what, looks like all human remains. So I think we make the parallel here, the connection, that these people are cannibals. And there's also a part later where they're attacking Virgil and they're saying hungry. So they're cannibals. They're eating people, and this is how they get people. They trap them into their house, and then they kill them and eat them. So she's separated from Virgil. She finds this stuff. She's running, but then she finds Virgil again. She finds the hole. She's between walls. You have to remember, there's like a secret passageway between the walls. And she finds that spot where the thing was looking at her through that hole. She's now on that side of the wall. So she looks through the hole and she sees Virgil on the other side. He's in the bathroom now. And he just barricaded himself. And so she's knocking on the wall. And this is my favorite scene of this episode. I'm already giving my favorite scene away right at the beginning of this podcast, but it's true. So she's pounding on the wall, and he thinks it's, one of these creatures. She thinks it's somebody bad. And I don't think he has actually seen one yet. I think or maybe he has. I think he got chased into that room. I forgot. So he's looking at the wall, and he pulls out his knife, and he's approaching it very slowly. And he's like, he can't see what's going on over there. So he's approaching it. He's coming toward, but that hole that she's looking through, it seems like it might be a different hole, but anyway, it's the same wall, same in the place in the bathroom. And so he's approaching it with his knife, and she doesn't really know how to communicate. She's just pounding on the wall. Well, then she sees one of those feral things crawl out from like a bottom cabinet, really creepy with its elbows up right behind him, and he doesn't see it. So she's pounding even harder. She's like, come on. Like, she can't communicate that. She can't say, look behind you. So she's pounding even harder. So then he really thinks, oh, this is something back there. I need to get it. So but right before he stabs into the wall, the thing grabs him. He fights it. It almost kills him. That's when it says hungry, because it's like looking at him as lunch, you know. But it's basically beating his head in, you know, into the ground, and and then she distracts it. She hits the wall, so it looks up at her. Virgil picks up his knife and stabs it. He doesn't kill it though, because it kind of crawls away. It goes back to its little hole where it came from. So then he gets up, and you kind of think, well, maybe now he knows that that's Connie back there, and nope. He stabs the wall. And that's where it's like very, very 80s. You know, the knife comes through. It's like, here, let me do it from this side. Yeah, that. And so the knife is like right in front of her face, and she's like, ah. There are photos of that, like, you know, that was in the trailer, and it's kind of like a iconic photo. So he comes close to stabbing her in the head, but he's going to stab again, and she is actually able to break through the plaster, and she sticks her arm through, and he sees it's her arm, and then they, you know, they're reunited, and so they're saved. So that's kind of their line. Now, other things happened during this. I wanted to explain the whole Connie Virgil thing all at once, and that's kind of the way I wrote it up in the article too. But you know, at the end they get saved. Kelly, who is Connie's sister, she's with Carol, and what's that girl's name? Magna, I think her name is. And they find the house, and they are reunited, and Kelly and Connie are reunited, and they hug and embrace, and it's great, you know. So they're saved. They're back together. Connie and Virgil are safe. Hopefully Virgil gets, he's hurt pretty bad, so hopefully he gets some medical treatment, and then we can see him, you know, more in the show. Okay, so for the other side of this episode, we have Daryl and Leah and the Reapers, you know. So we have Daryl. When we see him, he is torturing someone. And I think it's probably tough for Daryl to be in this situation, because the person he's torturing is I don't want to say like a friend. It's Frost, who we've seen. He's been with him before. He was in the group with them, in Maggie's group. They're not like BFFs or anything, but still, you know, he's someone that was in Maggie's group, so he doesn't want to kill him. But he has to play in front of Pope, the leader of the Reapers. He has to play that he's on Pope's side. So the only way to do that is to torture this guy who he knows. It's a tough call, but he does it. And not only that, he gets to the point where he cuts the guy's finger off. And we've seen Daryl torture people before, so we know that he knows how to do it. He might even enjoy it a little bit, probably. So he cuts this guy's finger off, and finally the guy's like, okay, fine. You know, I thought you were going to be, this is what he's thinking probably. He's like, I thought you were going to be cool. We're friends, and I didn't think you were going to actually cut my finger off, but I get it. You got to, you know, to save both of our lives, you have to do this. So he tells him what he wants to hear. He tells him where Maggie and Negan and Gabriel are. And now, of course, he doesn't know where they are, because he just knows where the rendezvous point is, and that's where they are. So he says Yellow House, town off of the 283, antenna. He says antenna because there's a big antenna on the house. So he reveals the place where Maggie is, and you can kind of see in Daryl's face, he's like, oh, okay. And I don't know if Daryl wanted to get to that point where the Reapers would be after Maggie, or if he really didn't know that Frost was going to reveal the exact details. So then they head off. They go off to find Maggie. Maggie, Negan, Gabriel, and Elijah are in this house. When they get there, Daryl's trying to warn Maggie. So when they're approaching, he's like, you know, moving stuff, and like these wires are moving around in the power poles. And he's acting like he's searching, but he's really kind of giving them a warning. And I'm really surprised that the Reapers didn't, Leah and the other Reapers didn't, catch on to that and be like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you making so much racket over there? But it works. Maggie sees him, and she and the others hide in a trap door, like a basement kind of thing under the floor. And Daryl sees this when he's in there, and he's, you know, looking for Maggie. He sees the corner of the trapdoor under a rug, and he's like, oh, so he kind of steps on it to hide it a little bit. And Maggie's down there. You can see they're all looking up at him like, please be quiet. Please don't give away our position, anything like that. But the Reapers eventually figure it out. And he sees the one guy, I forgot his name, the leader. He looks like Bellamy from the 100. Am I right? The guy, I don't know. So he sees this trap door, and he says, "Oh, what are you doing, Daryl? Are you knew about this?" I think he kind of hints that Daryl might have been in on this or something. Daryl's like, "What are you talking about?" He opens the door, nobody's down there. And then we see the four of them, Maggie's little group, escaping. I don't know how they got out. There must have been a back door or something. And so they escape, and the Reapers are pretty mad at Daryl at this point, and so they take him back. He meets back up with Pope, and Pope's like, "Hey, it's cool." And he says, "Oh, by the way, I talked to your buddy Frost." He didn't say your buddy, but he says, "The guy you were torturing, Frost, I talked to him a little bit before he turned." And there you could see Frost out in the background, chained up to a tree, and he's turned. He's undead now, and he's growling and stuff. And Pope says, "Hey, but before he turned, he told me some stuff." And Daryl's like, "Oh yeah?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got the info out of him I needed." And Daryl's like, "Oh yeah?" Like Daryl's trying to play it cool. He's hoping, because Frost already told about Maggie. So who's to say that Frost isn't also going to tell on Daryl and say, "You know what? This guy cut my finger off. Screw him. He actually knows Maggie, and he's friends with us. So kill him." Frost could have said that. And that's what Daryl was thinking. He was super paranoid about it. And he said, "Well, you know what? That's cool. Like, that this guy talked to you." And Pope is like, yeah, I'll talk to you later. And he's walking away, and he's kind of looking back at him. And then he talks to the other Reaper guy, and they're whispering to each other. And then they look back at Daryl and they laugh. And you see Leah, she's standing next to Daryl, and she kind of was like, what are they talking about? And I think she's getting a little suspicious, and Daryl's freaking out. I mean, his mind is probably like, I'm caught. I'm sitting in this place. They know who I am. I am screwed, right? I mean, it's very possible that he is found out, that Frost told on him before he turned. So that's something we have to find out later. We don't know if he told on him. Of course, stuff like this isn't in the comic books. The Reapers, I don't believe the Reapers are in the comic books. No, I don't think they were at all. I never read the comics, but I did some research on them a long time ago. So I don't think the Reapers are. So I think this is all new territory as we're watching it in the show, because the ending of the comics was completely different than what we're seeing right now. It was, it had Rick in it still, and Michonne and Aaron, and so we're already away from that. We're in new territory. We don't really know what's going on, and that's good. I think it's a good thing. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see for the next episode if Daryl's found out. It will be exciting to see if now that Connie's back with the group, they're stronger, how that's all going to play out. But the trailer they showed a trailer for next week, and it has it has Negan doing a voiceover, and he's talking to Maggie, and he says, well, Maggie says, like, do you regret anything? Would you do anything over again if you could? And he says, yeah. He says, if I could do it all over again, I would. So maybe that's a little bit of amends, a little bit of mending of the relationship between Maggie and Negan. I don't know. People, it's weird. People are doing a lot of theories about those two. Some people are even saying that they might have a romantic relationship at some point. I don't see that happening. But this is The Walking Dead, and crazy things happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I mean, I like Negan as much as, like, his character as just being, I mean, he's funny, right? And just the character that he is. So what if he killed a couple people, right? Glenn who? No, I'm just kidding. I love Glenn. but he definitely has a charisma to him that a lot of people have really attached themselves to. I hated him at first. Oh, I hated that guy. I hated him. The way when Negan would do that back lean thing and talk, oh, I hated him so much. But he had this kind of charisma that I think made people just be like, what's he going to do next? I'm not crazy about his character now because he's kind of a wimp. He just keeps apologizing for everything. But we saw in last season, when he found Lucille, that bat, he's kind of like, I'm back. So I think he has this underlying intention that is interesting. It's interesting to see where he's going to go from here. Is he trying to win over Maggie to eventually do something harmful to her, to take over Alexandria? I don't know why he'd want to do that, but like, what is it? What's his end game? I don't know. But we see more Negan and Maggie, and we see Lance from the Commonwealth. Now, the Commonwealth is that place. It's kind of like a utopia where Yumiko and Eugene and Princess are there, and Ezekiel, and so they're kind of falling into this utopian, this post-apocalyptic utopian society where they're getting ice cream and stuff like that. And so Lance, who's the guy that was in the videos they were watching, I think he's like the mayor or something like that. He's some kind of higher up at the Commonwealth. He's telling Yumiko, I want all of you, I want all of your people. Like, let's get all your people from everywhere and come here and let's have our utopian society together. And of course, Yumi's like, no thanks. Because she still knows, even though her brother's there and everything, and he's trying to convince her. So there's a lot of pressure on this little group to get the rest of their people in. And I think it's very foreshadowing-y. Is that a word? So, and we see that, and then at the very end, we see something I never thought I'd see. It's Maggie wearing a Whisperer mask. You see her walking around amongst the zombies, and then you see her pull it off. So, I don't know. I mean, it's creepy, It's interesting to try to figure out why she's doing it. I mean, I'm sure she's trying to infiltrate the Whisperers and try to figure out where they're at, because they pretty much broke up and there's little remnants of them here and there, and so she wants to get rid of them, I imagine. But we'll see how that plays out. And that's basically the trailer for next week. This episode, my favorite, like I said, it's called On the Inside. It's episode 6, season 11. If you haven't seen it, then I apologize for all the spoilers. If you have seen it, let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did you think that this was a great, the greatest episode of the last season or two? Did you hate it? What was it about it that really got you either way? Just let me know. But I'm really enjoying doing these little spoiler recaps, and I hope you are enjoying watching them. If you want to check out other things that we do, we also have the site postapocalyptic.com, and we have another podcast called the Post-Apocalyptic Media Podcast, and that's what it's called. And I just did episode 43 of that, so you can you have a lot of backlog if you want to check that out. But thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for keeping it alive here with the other Walking Dead fanatics like myself. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone. See you next time.